Mizushima Ryo is just your average dude with big dreams and zero chill. While the rest of us were out here trying to be like Ronaldo or LeBron, this guy chose badminton, the one sport where a light breeze can ruin your career. But credit where it's due, Ryo thinks he's built for greatness, even though he looks like he'd pull a hamstring tying his shoes. It was a regular school day, and Ryo was rewatching a match of his favorite badminton player. His eyes were glimmering as he watched the movements of the person he admired. Along came his friend, Shizuo. Shizuo saw how much Ryo admired this player known as Yusa Kento, so he advised him to apply to the school Yusa was in and get to play badminton with him. But Ryo had some serious self-doubt and rejected the idea of it even happening. After hearing Ryo like that, another one of his friends named Hiroto suggested they go to another school called Inayama High School. Ryo figured it was a good idea. He'd get to play with his friends and even be in the same school as them too. It seemed like they were on the same page about going to Inayama, but suddenly, Ryo got called away by his homeroom teacher. He thought he was in trouble, but he couldn't have been further from the truth. Turns out, he had been noticed by the same school that Yusa goes to, Yokohama Minato High School. The badminton coach there, Coach Abara, wanted Ryo to come into the school on a sports recommendation. Ryo couldn't believe this was actually happening. He told them that he didn't have any kind of experience playing in the big leagues, but Coach Abara said that could be solved by playing with the other team members in the school. But he still had reservations about the whole thing, so he held off responding to the coach till another day. After the meeting, he told his friends about it, and they were shocked as much as they were happy for him. Shizuo told him to straight up take it and not turn down such a big opportunity. Later that evening, he brought the topic up to his parents, and his dad went ballistic. He told Ryo that there was no way in hell he'd allow him to go there on a sports scholarship. Ryo's sister, Rika, stepped in and told Ryo to speak up for himself. But once again, self-doubt made Ryo accept his fate and not fight it. He decided to go for a run. Before he left, Rika ran after him and shook some sense into him. She also told him how their dad was being a pain in the butt because he lost his sports scholarship in high school due to an injury. So, he didn't want the same thing happening to Ryo. But Rika asked him what he truly wanted. Obviously, he wanted to go to Yokohama Minato. He went on his run, and in the middle of it, he decided to steal his resolve and tell his dad he was going to go to Yokohama. But, on an academic recommendation instead. He wanted to show his dad that he was going to excel in the school, even if badminton didn't work out. The dad couldn't say no to such determination, so he agreed to let Ryo go ahead with it. The next day, Ryo got a phone call from the Yokohama coach asking him if he would like to come and practice with the players on the Yokohama team. This was probably the fastest yes that Ryo had given in his entire life. He told his friends about it and they were all super supportive. Hiroto even asked him to get the autograph of Yusa. Ryo said his final goodbyes, but was still feeling a bit nervous. This was resolved by Shizuo yelling at him to focus. This gave Ryo the boost he needed, and he went off. After he got off the train, he was plagued by the Zoro virus and couldn't find his way. But after a while, he finally got to the school, and he was in awe of the place. He didn't waste too much time before heading to the gym. He got there just as they were about to start too. The coach asked them all to introduce themselves, and after they did, he introduced the team captain, Hongo Kazuki, and then the ace, which was Ryo's role model, Yusa Kento. But something seemed off. Yusa had a very nasty look on his face. They say never meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed, and it was looking like that for Ryo. Yusa seemed to be a very arrogant person. Right off the bat, instead of giving the newbies a warm welcome, he just told them to not interfere with his practice session. Among the recruits who had introduced themselves, Taichi and Yoji Higashiyama, Matsuda, and Sakaki. The Higashiyama twins and Sakaki already knew each other, and Sakaki recognized Ryo from past matches. However, none of them were familiar with Matsuda. Practice began with warm-up exercises, and Coach Abara introduced a drill for improving accuracy, knocking down shuttle tubes. He called Yusa to demonstrate the drill, and he knocked down all 4 tubes in just 20 seconds, impressing and frustrating the first years. Their goal was to knock down 4 tubes within 2 minutes. Matsuda went first and successfully hit 3 tubes despite some initial misses. Taichi and his twin went next and each managed to knock down 2 tubes. Sakaki was a bit too eager to prove he was better than Yusa, but it came back to bite him in the nuts. His first attempt didn't even cross the net, and in the end, he failed to hit any tubes. Coach Ibarra advised him to control his emotions and focus on solidifying his mental strength. Next, it was Ryo's turn. His first 2 attempts failed because he couldn't quite get how Yusa did it in the demonstration. However, he eventually got the hang of the technique, stayed calm, and managed to knock down 1 tube before time ran out. But unlike the others who were a bit bummed for not getting everything, he was overjoyed that he got the technique down. When they were taking a break, Sakaki expressed his frustration for not getting even 1 tube down, but he seemed even more upset for Ryo. He noticed that Ryo got the hang of it in the second half of the time limit. But of course, Ryo didn't give himself any credit. Sakaki then expressed that he wanted to play doubles with Ryo, to which Ryo didn't even know how to respond. Sakaki said that he loved the way Ryo played, and wanted to chase his dream of claiming the Triple Crown in singles, doubles, and as a team. After they were rested, Coach Ibarra put them through some more training, and they were all exhausted afterwards. Only Ryo was left on his feet. Yet, despite all that, Coach Ibarra said that was the light training, and that they were going to resume their normal training schedule from tomorrow. Meanwhile, Yusa was giving Ryo some bad looks. When they were able to move again, they all went to freshen up before leaving. On their way home, they asked Matsuda to tell them about him. He mentioned how he came from China and got into badminton all because of Coach Ibarra. He stated, however, that he wasn't sure if he would enroll in Yokohama Minato High School yet. He didn't want to have to deal with seniors like Yusa. They all then asked him to join their endeavor to best Yusa, since he too didn't like him. But Matsuda said he wasn't a fan of groups and bid them farewell. The gang went on to talk about their next practice session, and in the process, they teased Sakaki for admiring Ryo so much. When Ryo got home, his sister was excited to see him talk about badminton so openly now. She told him not to worry about Yusa and his odd gazes. She knew that whatever skills Yusa had built over time, Ryo too would get them and become just as good, or even better than Yusa. Soon enough, in the days to come, Ryo celebrated his middle school graduation. It was a very emotional moment for him because he was moving on to a different school and wouldn't see his friends very often. That night, Ryo, Shizuo, and Hiroto sat at a bench and pondered about their life moving forward. Ryo thanked them for playing badminton with him all these years and promised he would work hard to meet them at the prefectural tournament. With his head held high and a bright mindset, Ryo headed up the stairs to start his new life. But before he went off too far, Shizuo yelled out one last time for him to focus. Ryo smiled and did his usual cringe flex pose. At the opening ceremony at Yokohama Minato High School, Ryo's family came to support him and took photos together. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and pride as Ryo, dressed in his crisp new uniform, stood alongside his family. His parents beamed with pride, capturing the moment with their cameras, eager to document the beginning of their son's high school journey. Ryo's heart swelled with gratitude for their unwavering support, knowing that their presence was a source of strength and encouragement. Later that day, Ryo headed to class where he found Matsuda as a classmate. The classroom buzzed with the energy of new beginnings, students chattering excitedly as they settled into their seats. Ryo scanned the room, a sense of curiosity washing over him as he observed his fellow classmates. When his eyes landed on Matsuda, a flicker of surprise crossed his face, quickly followed by a warm smile. He felt a sense of camaraderie with Matsuda, knowing they shared the bond of being newcomers in this unfamiliar environment. The school clubs started recruiting new members after class, so Ryo and Matsuda headed to the badminton club meeting spot. The hallways transformed into a vibrant marketplace, each club vying for the attention of the fresh-faced students. Colorful banners and enthusiastic shouts filled the air, creating a lively and energetic atmosphere. Ryo and Matsuda navigated through the crowd, their footsteps guided by the allure of the badminton club. Sakaki and the Higashiyama twins had already gotten there and were getting ready. The rhythmic sound of shuttlecocks hitting rackets echoed through the gymnasium as Sakaki and the Higashiyama twins warmed up. Their movements were fluid and precise, a testament to their dedication to the sport. A sense of anticipation filled the air as they eagerly awaited the arrival of new members, ready to share their passion for badminton. After Ryo and Matsuda got teased for looking nerdy in their uniforms, a bunch of other students walked in wanting to join as well. The initial teasing, although lighthearted, served as a reminder of the social dynamics at play. However, the arrival of other students shifted the focus of the conversation. The influx of new faces eager to join the badminton club created a sense of shared enthusiasm. By the time they were all assembled in the gym, Coach Ibarra realized that the club welcomed 10 new members this year. The gymnasium buzzed with activity as the new recruits gathered, their eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and excitement. Coach Ibarra, a figure of authority and guidance, observed the group with a warm smile, his heart filled with pride at the growing interest in the badminton club. He knew that this influx of new talent held the promise of a bright future for the team. Captain Hongo introduced the new players and announced the club's main goal, qualifying for the national tournament. Hongo, his voice filled with confidence and determination, welcomed the new members with open arms. He spoke passionately about the club's aspirations, igniting a fire within the recruits to strive for greatness. The goal of qualifying for the national tournament seemed ambitious, but it served as a unifying force, binding the team together in pursuit of a common dream. But first, they needed to win the inter-school tournament. The inter-school tournament was presented as an immediate challenge, a stepping stone on their path to the national stage. It was emphasized that victory in this tournament was crucial, not only for the team's progress, but also for building confidence and momentum. The players understood the significance of this tournament, recognizing it as an opportunity to showcase their skills and prove their mettle. Practice began with intense warm-ups that left everyone, especially the inexperienced members, completely exhausted. Coach Ibarra wasted no time in putting the new recruits through a rigorous training regimen. The warm-ups were designed to test their physical limits, pushing them beyond their comfort zones. Sweat poured down their faces as they stretched, ran, and performed drills, their bodies aching with fatigue. The inexperienced members struggled to keep up, their muscles burning and their breath coming in ragged gasps. By the end of the session, the team was too tired to even hold rackets, but they all went home together, laughing about how demanding the practice was. Despite the grueling nature of the practice, a sense of camaraderie and shared accomplishment filled the air. The players, their bodies weary but their spirits high, walked home together, their laughter echoing through the streets. They joked about the coach's demanding nature and the intensity of the training, finding humor in their shared suffering. This shared experience forged a bond between them, strengthening their resolve to face future challenges together. The next day, 2 of the new recruits skipped practice, which wasn't a good look because the other new recruits were feeling down about it. The absence of 2 recruits cast a shadow over the team. Their absence felt like a betrayal of the shared commitment. A sense of disappointment and discouragement settled among the remaining recruits, their morale dampened by the lack of dedication from their teammates. They questioned their own resolve, wondering if the path to becoming champions was too arduous to bear. But Sakaki told them it was too early to quit, and his contagious energy spread to the others. Sakaki, with his unwavering optimism and infectious enthusiasm, stepped in to lift their spirits. He reminded them of their shared dream and the importance of perseverance, his words resonating with the disheartened recruits. His energy was contagious, igniting a spark of hope within them and renewing their determination to push forward. As practice commenced, the seniors observed the new members. The Higashiyama twins displayed impressive skills, shocking the seniors, but some of them were skeptical about them because they were only interested in playing doubles. The gymnasium transformed back into a training ground, the air filled with the rhythmic sound of shuttlecocks and the squeak of shoes on the polished floor. The seniors watched intently as the new recruits showcased their abilities, their eyes widening in surprise at the Higashiyama twins' exceptional skills. The twins moved with a fluid grace, their coordination and power hinting at a bright future. However, their exclusive interest in doubles matches raised eyebrows among the seniors, who wondered if they lacked the versatility to excel in singles. The inexperienced players received patient guidance from Coach Ibarra. Coach Ibarra, ever the attentive mentor, provided personalized instruction to the inexperienced players. He offered words of encouragement, corrected their form, and shared valuable tips to improve their technique. His patience and guidance instilled confidence in the recruits, helping them overcome their initial struggles and develop a solid foundation. Later, he asked Ryo if he wanted to practice against Yusa. As practice wound down, Coach Ibarra approached Ryo with a proposition. He saw potential in Ryo's quick reflexes and unwavering determination, and believed that a practice match against Yusa would be a valuable learning experience. Ryo's eyes widened at the suggestion, a mix of nervousness and excitement coursing through him. And although he was nervous, Ryo agreed. Despite his apprehension, Ryo accepted the challenge, his competitive spirit overriding his fear. He understood that facing a skilled opponent like Yusa was essential for his growth as a player. With a deep breath, he steeled himself for the upcoming match, ready to test his limits. The match between Ryo and Yusa began shortly. The gymnasium fell silent as all eyes turned to the court, where Ryo and Yusa stood ready to compete. The air crackled with anticipation, the other players eager to witness the clash between the seasoned veteran and the promising newcomer. Coach Ibarra signaled the start of the match, and the shuttlecock soared through the air, initiating a battle of skill and strategy. Ryo tried to anticipate Yusa's moves to block his swings, but failed repeatedly. Ryo focused intently on Yusa's movements, attempting to decipher his intentions and predict his shots. However, Yusa's speed and agility proved to be a formidable challenge, his swings too swift and precise for Ryo to counter. Despite his best efforts, Ryo struggled to block Yusa's attacks, the shuttlecock whizzing past him time and time again. Despite the setbacks, Ryo asked for another chance, determined to improve. Undeterred by his initial failures, Ryo's determination burned even brighter. He refused to be discouraged by his inability to block Yusa's swings, instead viewing it as an opportunity to learn and grow. With unwavering resolve, he requested another chance to face Yusa, eager to apply what he had learned from his mistakes. While Ryo couldn't block Yusa's shots, his quick reactions caught Yusa's attention. Although Ryo struggled to defend against Yusa's powerful swings, his agility and speed did not go unnoticed. Yusa observed Ryo's swift movements on the court, acknowledging his impressive reflexes. Despite dominating the match, Yusa recognized Ryo's potential, realizing that his quick reactions could become a valuable asset with further training. However, Yusa continued to look down on the rest of the new recruits, which angered Sakaki. Yusa's condescending attitude towards the other new recruits simmered beneath the surface. He dismissed their efforts and belittled their skills, his arrogance creating a tense atmosphere. Sakaki, ever protective of his teammates, grew increasingly irritated by Yusa's behavior. He believed in the potential of every player and refused to tolerate Yusa's disdainful treatment of them. Later that night, Ryo's parents were worried about his grades. As Ryo returned home from practice, his parents greeted him with a mixture of warmth and concern. They had always prioritized his academic success and worried that the demanding nature of the badminton club might negatively impact his studies. Their faces were etched with worry as they gently broached the subject, their love for their son evident in their every word. They knew poor performance in school could prevent him from participating in the club. Ryo's parents understood the school's policy regarding extracurricular activities. They were aware that academic performance was a prerequisite for participating in the badminton club, and poor grades could lead to suspension or even expulsion from the team. This knowledge fueled their anxiety, as they desperately wanted Ryo to pursue his passion for badminton while maintaining his academic standing. Ryo, however, was confident in his ability to balance his academics and told them not to worry. Ryo, with his characteristic optimism and self-assurance, reassured his parents. He believed in his ability to manage his time effectively and excel in both his studies and badminton. His words were filled with conviction as he promised to prioritize his schoolwork and not let his grades slip. But it seemed their worry was warranted, since the next day on his test, he scored only 34 points while Matsuda scored a perfect 100. Ryo's parents' concerns were validated, as it became clear that balancing badminton and academics was proving to be a greater challenge than he had anticipated. Coach Ibarra, while wearing his teacher's hat, reviewed the test scores with a stern expression. He noticed Ryo's significantly low score and called him aside for a private conversation. With a firm but caring tone, he issued a warning, emphasizing the importance of prioritizing his studies. He made it clear that while he supported Ryo's passion for badminton, academic success was paramount. During practice, the team noticed that Akira, one of the new members, was absent. They wondered about his whereabouts, their concern growing with each passing moment. Later, they learned he had decided to quit because he couldn't balance practice and his studies. The news of Akira's decision to quit spread through the team like wildfire. They learned that the pressure of balancing rigorous badminton practice with demanding academic work had become too overwhelming for him. Despite his initial enthusiasm, he felt he had no choice but to prioritize his studies, even if it meant giving up the sport he loved. It was also revealed that Akira had entered the school through a recommendation. The revelation that Akira had entered the school through a recommendation added another layer of complexity to the situation. It highlighted the pressure he must have felt to succeed, both on and off the court. This news motivated Ryo to work harder to avoid falling behind. Akira's departure served as a wake-up call for Ryo. He realized that he could not take his position on the team for granted, and that he needed to work even harder to excel in both badminton and his studies. Akira's struggle became a source of motivation for Ryo, fueling his determination to succeed where his teammate had faltered. Coach Ibarra noticed Akira struggling during practice. Even before Akira's decision to quit, Coach Ibarra had observed his difficulties during practice. He noticed the frustration and exhaustion etched on Akira's face as he struggled to keep up with the demanding drills. Coach Ibarra's keen eye for detail allowed him to recognize Akira's potential, but also his internal conflict. After observing closely, the coach realized Akira had previously played table tennis. Coach Ibarra's experience and insight allowed him to identify a key factor in Akira's struggles. He noticed similarities between Akira's movements and those of a table tennis player. This observation sparked an idea in Coach Ibarra's mind, leading him to believe that Akira's previous experience could be leveraged to improve his badminton skills. He advised Akira to use a similar approach while swinging, telling him to push forward as he struck the shuttle. Coach Ibarra shared his insight with Akira, suggesting that he adapt his table tennis techniques to his badminton swings. He instructed Akira to focus on pushing forward with his body weight as he struck the shuttle, generating more power and accuracy. This advice was tailored to Akira's specific background, demonstrating Coach Ibarra's personalized approach to coaching. Following this advice, Akira hit the shuttle successfully, surprising everyone. With this newfound understanding of how to go about playing, Akira was able to properly improve in his weak areas. The next morning, the gang saw that the cubbyhole for Akira was empty. They assumed he had quit because of his slow starting, but when they opened the gym, they saw him there, already cleaning up the place. Akira told them that he had come there earlier than normal because his last class got cancelled. The other teammates apologized for assuming he quit, and they went on to train together on the track. Coach Ibarra announced that the selection for the lineup they would take to the championships was about to begin. It was going to be done in a series of ranked matches between the players, and the winners would be chosen for the starting lineup for the championships. Off the bat, Yusa declared he would go all out against anyone. The first-year players, however, saw this as their chance to prove themselves. Matches started, and the intensity was evident. Akira faced Yusa, and although he had hope, the gap in skill was enormous. Yusa quickly gained a 20-point lead and mocked Akira, saying that if he lost by 21 points, he'd call him a loser. However, Akira shouted "push forward" and hit the shuttle, which grazed the edge of the net, scoring a point. This upset Yusa, who delivered a powerful shot to end the match. Although Akira lost, he felt proud to have scored at least once. Yusa dominated, winning 3 consecutive matches. Matsuda fought hard, and Ryo played an intense game, tying his opponent with 17 points before eventually winning. The Higashiyama twins competed against each other, and Taichi emerged victorious. Meanwhile, Sakaki battled Yusa but struggled and ended up losing despite his efforts. At the end of the first day, Yusa had won all 5 matches. Matsuda won 4, Sakaki won 3, and the Higashiyama twins and Ryo each won 2 matches. Unfortunately, Akira didn't win any. Yusa hinted he was eager to face Ryo the next day. On the second day during recess, Ishiki came to cheer for Ryo. Matsuda greeted Yusa, but Yusa ignored him, confidently claiming he'd beat Ryo in just 7 minutes. Matsuda and Sakaki were annoyed by Yusa's arrogance. And rightly so. What's got him feeling so arrogant all the time? When matches resumed, Matsuda faced Yusa and felt the pressure, while Ryo competed against Captain Hongo, who guided him during the game. Both Ryo and Matsuda lost their matches, but Ryo showed noticeable improvement, which impressed the captain. Ryo sought help from Akira before his match against Yusa. When their match began, Yusa quickly gained a 15-point lead, but Ryo started focusing and managed to predict Yusa's shots. At one point, Ryo successfully saved a shuttle close to the net, which surprised everyone. Coach Ibarra noticed that Yusa was taking the match seriously. Despite Yusa's confidence, the game exceeded 7 minutes, making him frustrated. Ryo ultimately lost 21-5 but was thrilled to have exceeded expectations. Later that night, Ryo reflected on his growth and prepared for the final day. On the last day of matches, the players aimed to secure their rankings. Akira had accepted his fate of not going since he had scored 0 points. Meanwhile, Matsuda was aiming for 4th place to secure a spot in the tournament, while Ryo faced Sakaki. Their match was intense, and Ryo led 20-18. He remembered his past matches with the captain and Yusa, which motivated him to push harder. With Coach Ibarra observing, Ryo demonstrated significant improvement and won the match. Despite being slower than experienced players, his determination was clear. By the end of the selection rounds, all the first years had shown remarkable progress, setting the stage for their future in the tournament. The final match of the third day was between Ryo and Matsuda. Matsuda and Ryo were set for the final game of the selection. Matsuda was focused on just placing 4th so he could qualify, but he still wasn't going to take it easy with Ryo. He too wanted to win with everything he had. At the gym, Coach Ibarra told Hongo to dismiss everyone who had finished their matches, but everyone wanted to see the outcome of the match between Ryo and Matsuda. Ryo was losing and they were locked in a rally of over 50 shots. After Ryo won the rally, they went on a break with the score reading 11-8. Matsuda was still in the lead, but his legs were trembling already. Ryo, on the other hand, looked like he could still keep going. The break was over, and the match continued. It grew even more intense. As Matsuda kept rising, Ryo was right behind him, up until they got to 20 all. Ryo messed up his serve and lost the tie to Matsuda, but he regained a point when Matsuda messed up as well. This was anybody's game. Whoever gave in to fatigue first would lose. Matsuda kept going and managed to get in the lead once again. And on the last rally, his calves gave put and made him return the serve poorly. This gave Ryo a crazy opening to keep himself in the game, but he messed up the smash and lost the match, 23-21. Ryo laughed off his mistake. He was just really glad he made it that far. But Matsuda didn't share the same optimistic point of view as him. He got upset for some reason and stormed out of the gym. Coach Ibarra then asked the first years to clean up the gym while everyone else went home. Everyone went to cheer Ryo on for making it so far, but they were also worried about Matsuda. Not sure why they were though. Bro won and still got mad. Quite childish if you ask me. After they were done cleaning up, they headed to the gym entrance and saw that the list of players had been pasted already. Matsuda came in 5th, Ryo came in at 13th, and Akira was dead last. Not the best performance from Ryo, but he took it well. Meanwhile, the stuck-up Matsuda was in his apartment still upset about the match. He knew that if not for Ryo's inexperienced mistakes, he would have won instead of him, and that pissed him off for whatever reason. After showering, he noticed he didn't have anything for dinner. So, he Googled a nearby restaurant and went out. When he got there, he was surprised to find out that the place was owned by Sakaki's family. Once the small talk was out of the way, Matsuda got served and dug into the food right away. He looked like he hadn't had proper food in a while, and that was the exact case. His parents were divorced, and his dad was never home due to his work being overseas. So, Matsuda was stuck having to eat and live alone for quite some time now. Sakaki, being the oblivious person he is, just laughed at his situation. After they finished eating, they both went to the train station, and along the way, Matsuda opened up about why he was so upset after his match with Ryo. He told Sakaki that he liked being alone on the court and racking up points. But Sakaki told him he doesn't have to be such a lone wolf all the time. The next day at school, it was time for the doubles ranking matches, and Sakaki couldn't wait to compete alongside Ryo. But that enthusiasm went down the drain quickly. They ranked so bad, they didn't even bother saying what it was. A few days later, the tournament was upon them, and it was time to showcase their growth so far and win. And boy, did they win. The twins, Captain Hongo and obviously Yusa, all progressed to the qualifying rounds with ease. It almost seemed like the other teams weren't trying. Rio was so excited. The championship that they had long sought looked like it was finally in their sights. However, things started to look bleak. Yokokawa lost his match and was knocked out of the game. But he gave Yusa a look as if he knew Yusa would take care of things. Well, he was right. Yusa went up against the guy that beat Yokokawa and won. Not only that, he used that momentum to win his next 3 matches. You may not like the guy, but he's definitely got skill. Up next was the doubles matches, and the twins were dominating that bracket. They looked forward to their match, and funny enough it was, against the same guy that Yusa beat earlier. The twins were in good form, and they kept the pressure on the opponents, up till they came to a 20-point draw. Suddenly, the opponents decided to go on the offensive and bombard the twins with smashes. This made Yoji nervous, and he couldn't keep up with the fast rally, which ended up netting the opponents a point. Their opponents saw that they had defeated them mentally, so they took the opportunity and got the final point, making them the winners of the first round. The second round wasn't any different. The twins were still completely out of sync and lost again by 17-21. The next day after the match, while they were training, Yoji seemed to be over yesterday's loss and was keeping a fake smile on. But at some point, even he couldn't do it for long, so he went out for a run. When they asked Taichi what was wrong, he told them that Yoji wasn't good under pressure. The gang wondered how it would affect him going forward. The next day, they were facing the same opponents again in doubles. Taichi told Yoji to go on the attack from the jump so they could have the upper hand, but he quickly noticed that Yoji was already nervous. And after the first round, they lost 17-21. It seemed like history was about to be repeated. The twins decided to lock in, Yoji especially. He started attacking aggressively as well, and he didn't let up. They battled it out until the scoreline was in the 20s. Both sides were tired, but neither wanted to give in. Ultimately, even though they for their second wind back and support from their friends, it was a bit too late for the twins, and they lost once again. The Yusa and Yokokawa pair went on to win the rest of their matches and led the team to nationals. Later that day, the gang was talking about the match. The twins felt bad for what happened, but Yoji in particular took it as a learning experience and a chance to get better. The team was set to face a school known as Saitama Futaba High School in a practice match. This school in particular was very personal to them because they had never beaten them in a match before. Yusa noticed while they were lined up that they didn't bring their main team, which consisted of their third-year students, which was a blow to their ego. Personally, I wouldn't take that either. They don't even think I'm worth their main team? Wow, that's crazy. Well, it didn't seem so crazy once the matches started. The Saitama Futaba team players seemed to be winning all of their matches with relative ease. Even Matsuda had a hard time against them and eventually lost. Yusa, on the other hand, was excelling in his matches. After he won all his singles matches, the coach asked him to play a doubles match with Yokokawa, which he agreed to. Before the match, Yusa told Yoko that he was going all out from the start, and Yoko silently agreed. With that, their onslaught of non-stop attacks got them the lead. But while Yoko was reaching to return a rally, his legs gave out and he couldn't reach. Yusa didn't mind, and just told him to keep playing. On the other side of the court, Ryo was struggling to keep up with his opponents. He couldn't follow all their plays, and it ultimately led to his defeat. Surprisingly, after the match, his opponent came up to him and commended his playstyle, but also said that he wasn't making the most of his pair with Sakaki. Ryo was too tired and confused to process how to receive the compliment, or even understand the criticism, so he just stood and watched him leave. But as soon as he turned around, he saw that Yusa and Yoko were playing. Everything else was suddenly meaningless to him. Yusa was cornered by his opponents. He was having to deal with offense and making up for Yoko being out of shape. The opponents tried to exploit this by hurling insults at Yusa, but this only made him even more upset, and he forced his way through to winning. Everyone was excited. But on another court, their captain was beaten by a second-year student named Date. It shocked even the coach, because he didn't think Date could get so much better from the last time he saw him play, which was in middle school. But he took it as a chance for them to get better, now that they know what they're up against. With that, their practice match against Futaba came to an end. The next day, everyone was re-evaluating themselves at lunch. They talked about Yusa's win streak in yesterday's practice match and how the twins were the only first-year students that won a match. Ryo, on the other hand, was still thinking about what his opponent said to him about making the most of his pairing with Sakaki. But he didn't notice when his friends asked him a question, and it made them think he was focusing on something else. They all noticed the poster on the wall of a pretty girl and thought he was staring at her. Little did they know that was actually his sister. They asked Ryo what he thought of her, but Hongo and his friend came at just the right time to bail him out. Hongo said that the girl in the poster was their team's goddess in a manner of speaking. Ryo just got even more confused and didn't want to talk about the topic anymore. Elsewhere, Yoko went go get his leg checked with Coach Abara at the school clinic and found out that it had been overworked. The doctor recommended that they go to a proper hospital for a more thorough diagnosis. When Yoko went to the gym later, Yusa noticed how badly his leg was overworked too when he saw how Yoko flinched as he grabbed his ankle. Yusa pointed out that he was training the first-year students, he was doing his own training, and he was also training with everyone else. It was no wonder he was so overworked. Yusa then said that he wasn't playing doubles for fun and that he was going for the Triple Crown. He made it clear that if Yoko couldn't keep up, he would leave him behind. So, he told Yoko to go and get proper help quickly and stormed out. This made the gang really angry. They asked Yoko why he was even putting up with Yusa and his drama queen antics. But Yoko told them that Yusa is really a great guy. He narrated the story of when he first overworked his ankle and couldn't play doubles with Yusa. Yusa refused to play with anyone else. Yoko then realized with the help of the coach that he was Yusa's weakness, and the only way he could make up for it is by getting stronger. Which he did, and he was able to continue playing with Yusa. The gang continued to ask about Yoko and relationship with Yusa, but Ryo was in the background still trying to understand why his opponent said what he said to him. The next day, he pulled Sakaki aside to ask him why he chose him to play with since they weren't doing well as doubles teammates. Sakaki told him not to think too hard about it and walked off, but some of their seniors were listening in and gave Ryo some advice too. They told him that there was no such thing as a team that clicks from the start, so they had to keep working at it until they were better. Hongo even compared it to being married. Once their talk was done, he told Ryo to get changed and be on time to the gym. At the gym, Coach Abara was talking to them about the championships, but Yusa was restless. He kept turning his head as if he was expecting something. He soon calmed down when Yoko walked in and said the doctors told him he'd be fine after 3 days of rest. Yusa was happy, and with that news, they began preparing for the championship. Ryo found himself in the principal's office the next day. He had gotten into the Yokohama Minato on an academic recommendation, but he had been slacking in his studies lately. The principal told him to make sure this doesn't keep happening, while Coach Abara warned him that if his bad grades kept up, it could affect his participation in club activities. When Ryo got home that evening, his dad was beyond disappointed in him. He got so upset because it seemed like Ryo wasn't giving his studies much attention, so he told Ryo that unless he can get his grades back up, he won't let him play badminton anymore. Ryo didn't want that, so he spent the next couple of days studying hard, sometimes with the help of Akira. But, on one day, particularly the day before the inter-high matches, he fell sick with a cold due to leaving the AC on for too long and couldn't make it. Coach told him to stay home and get better, but he also reprimanded him for not taking better care of himself just before a big event. Ryo felt like a bucket of doo-doo, literally and figuratively. After the coach handled the situation with Ryo, he proceeded with the team to the location where their matches would take place. But before they went there, they stopped at a shrine to pray for their victory in the national championships. Once that was done, they headed to the place of residence they would be staying at to rest for the night and eat their fill. All while Ryo was still struggling to feel better at home. He even had nightmares whenever he slept about the team leaving him behind. The next day, they all attended the opening ceremony of the event, and shortly after, matches began. The twins were up first, and they seemed to be doing much better than before, even going on to win their match. After the first day came to an end, the team gathered and called Ryo to see how he was doing. The twins blurted out that they had made great progress in the tournament, and Ryo was very happy for them. He told them he'd be cheering them on from home. The next day, Ryo was feeling much better. so he decided to go for a run to start warming himself up to play when the team gets back from the tournament. When he got back, he got a text saying that Yusa and Yokokawa had won their doubles match. He was excited to hear this, but his sister came out of nowhere and told him to go hit the books and shower, so he did just that, but he was still worried about his team. Eventually they texted him and told him that the twins lost their match and couldn't progress further. Ryo was lost for words. He couldn't even respond in the group chat. They also texted later saying that Yokokawa lost his singles match too. That night, Ryo could barely eat anything. He just went for a run instead. The next day, it was time for the singles final, and Yusa was the one playing in it. His opponent gave him a good fight, and the scoreline was pretty close too. But the Prince of Badminton still came out victorious. Yusa got the crown in doubles and singles, but overall, as a team, the Yokohama Minato team came third. Later the next day, Ryo went for a run and bumped into his old teammates. They sat at a bench to catch up, and Shizuo told Ryo that he and Hiroto actually participated in the qualifiers, but they got defeated and couldn't progress. Their school didn't advance far though, but they still at least gave it their all and were practicing even harder ever since then. They asked Ryo if he also participated in the qualifiers, but he told them that he came down with a cold and was unable to go. They laughed at him and said he was always a very careless person. After making fun about him being careless for a bit, they headed to practice, with Shizuo telling him to make sure he made it to the qualifiers next time so they could face off. When Ryo got back home, he saw his friends near his house. Apparently, they wanted to surprise him with a visit, but they were more surprised when they saw him out and running already. Akira noticed a girl walking into Ryo's house and wondered who she was. When she came back out, he recognized her from the poster at school. Ryo introduced her as his sister and they went inside. Sakaki, being the doof he is, decided it was appropriate to ask Rika out, but she politely declined and went away. The guys then sat down and analyzed the team event. They talked about how Yusa won his match and the way he did. He took advantage of the opponent's rushed offense and capitalized on it. But he was only able to do that due to perseverance, something Ryo was very familiar with. They were super bummed they couldn't come out on top, but they just looked to the future to do better next year and actually win the team event. After they left, Ryo was feeling down and left out of the team. His sister walked in and asked him what was wrong. Ryo talked about how he keeps feeling like he's being left behind. Shizuo and Hiroto were making waves in their school, and he wasn't even a regular on the team yet, not to mention the fact that he went and got sick just before an important time. All these things made Ryo feel so down in the dumps. Rika asked him if he was okay with leaving things like that, to which he responded no to. She asked him to shout out his true intentions, and he did. He said he wanted to play Shizuo and Hiroto in the tournament and also get way stronger at singles and doubles. Rika said that he should always be sure to voice out his goals so that he would have a better time achieving them. With all that motivation given to him, he became pumped up and decided to go for his night run. He was so inspired that he beat his usual time for his night runs. He was slowly seeing the path he needed to follow to get stronger, and the first step was preparing for the training camp. With the team event over, it was time for Coach Ibarra to properly train the first years and hone their skills even more, which is why they were embarking on their week-long training camp. But this wasn't your ordinary training camp. According to rumors, it was one of the most gruesome training camps in the school, and they had to endure it for a whole week. I do not envy these guys. At first, the first-year students thought it was going to be them playing badminton all day, but they were sorely mistaken. The third years showed up with a training regimen from Hades himself and had them worked to the bone. In their defense, they wanted to get some practice in for when they would play in the university, and to do that, they were going to use the first-year students as their personal training bags, from sprints to jogs and everything in between. Whenever they thought it was over, the third year would bring up something even harder. While everyone was grumbling about how hard the training was, Ryo was locking in and going even harder than the coach asked him to. He figured there must be a good reason for the coach asking them to do these exercises and drills, so he pushed hard through it more than anyone else. Coach Ibarra noticed this and was glad that Ryo was using his head to figure things out on his own. After they were done with the training, they all rested, then went to eat. For some reason, they all didn't like the food that was given. which is crazy because they were served shrimp tempura and a lot of other nice-sounding dishes. I guess they just wanted meat straight up. Reminds me of a certain pirate king. Rio, however, dug into the food and was even looking for seconds. He wanted to eat as much as he could because he needed the energy for training. The guys decided to dump their food onto his plate since he seemed like he had a big appetite. But Captain Hongo and Yokokawa gave them a menacing gaze from a table far off, and they immediately began eating their own food. After eating, everyone was busy doing some form of cleanup. Ryo was on laundry duty, and he almost messed it up because he was lost in thought. Well, more like lost in training. He was doing calf raises and forgot that he hadn't closed the lid on the washing machine. Akira walked in just as the machine was overflowing and told Ryo to close the lid. He asked Ryo what was on his mind. He told Akira that he was just thinking about training, while also training and how to get better. To cheer Ryo up, Akira told him how even Yusa made mistakes when it came to washing, and how he was also a drama queen for showering too. Apparently, if other people were in the bath, Yusa would wait until they left. That didn't really cheer up Ryo, but it did fascinate him a little bit. Later, Ryo went to his locker to drop off stuff and saw Matsuda reading a book. He noticed a pink ribbon beside him, and before he could even ask about it, Matsuda got defensive about it. Matsuda eventually said who gave it to him, and Ryo was able to recall seeing the group of girls, even the clothes they were wearing. Matsuda praised his observation skills, but Ryo said they weren't that great. He told Matsuda that he had just always been an observer, thanks to following behind his sister. He could never really do the things she did, so he would always observe from a distance, and over time, he made a habit of it. After Ryo finished his little backstory, Matsuda was about to tell him a very important thing concerning his playstyle. But then, Sakaki entered and started sleepily talking about how they should all get some sleep. So, Matsuda mumbled it to himself instead and said that a player's observation skills is a very important thing. The next day, before they began practice, Coach Abara revealed that he invited one of the school's alumni, who now plays in university badminton, to come and coach them for today. It seemed Yusa and some other students recognized him too by the way they all respected him. Once the formalities were out of the way, the practice matches started, and Ryo immediately went to the sidelines to start observing. He noticed that Yusa and Yokokawa barely made mistakes in their gameplay, so his theory was to just not make any mistakes. But when he tried it out, he realized it was easier said than done. That was when he finally noticed something else. He noticed that Yokokawa kept on putting the shuttle in hard places to hit, and Yusa kept trying to take advantage, and since he couldn't, he'd do the same things, but faster so that Yokokawa couldn't have time to think. Ryo realized that the key to utilizing his high stamina and observation skills was to do just that, and as if the temporary coach was reading Ryo's mind, he asked Yokokawa to swap out with Ryo for a while. Once Ryo was in, he started playing as if his third eye was open. He began reading Yusa's gameplay. He did such a good job that everyone stopped to watch their game. Ryo soon realized that he had to start setting up his shots like Yusa does. So he began taking control of the match. But Yusa wasn't going to let that happen so easily. He struck back and the two went on a very long rally, long enough that Ryo was able to finally get his chance and hit the shuttle into Yusa's side to get a point. This clearly didn't sit well with Yusa, so he used his full power to crush Ryo and get the win. The whole gym was in awe, because even though Ryo lost, they were still so impressed by his performance. It's not every day you get to see someone locked in a 32-shot rally with the Prince of Badminton himself. Once things had settled, the alumni gave a little word of advice to the second-year students and then went on to mention that the first years could potentially bring home the trophy next year. Ryo and the others overheard this and determined to keep getting better so they could keep winning. Later in the evening, they all went to eat at a restaurant. Yusa sat beside Ryo and drilled on why he didn't tell him he was related to Rika. For context, earlier after they were done practicing, the alumni coach let it slip that Ryo was the younger brother of Rika, and it just so happened that Yusa was the biggest fan of Rika. You could even call him her biggest crush. So you can imagine his shock when he found out that the person he had been drilling so hard was the brother of his idol. He didn't know whether to strangle Ryo or start giving him special treatment. Ryo feigned ignorance and pretended to not know anything when Yusa asked how much he knew, but that just pissed Yusa off even more. The next day, the training camp continued. While everyone was doing drills, Rika entered the gym. She came to deliver snacks for everyone to share. Coach Ibarra appreciated it and thanked her properly for it. The alumni coach, however, didn't seem like he was a fan of Rika. After Rika finished talking to Coach Ibarra, she was about to leave when Yusa cornered her. Rika told him that their deal was off since he didn't win. You're probably wondering what their deal was. Well, Rika promised to go out with Yusa if he somehow managed to win the Triple Crown. That is, first in singles, first in doubles, and first overall as a team. Since he only got 2 out of the 3, which were singles and doubles, Rika said she wouldn't go on a date with him. Yusa asked her to give him one more try, and that he would do it in the upcoming championship tournament. Rika agreed, but I'm sure she thought he wouldn't. Rika then went outside to greet Ryo. Ryo wondered why she came, but she just gave a few random words of advice to him and his friends, and went away. What a strange girl. After she left, the boys went back to the gym after they finished up their runs. Once they were at the gym, Coach Ibarra announced that there will be ranking matches to determine who will be selected for the newbie tournament coming up soon. He also mentioned that Yusa and Yoko wouldn't be participating in the selections since they would be undergoing special training for nationals. He basically said that the first-year students were all trash compared to Yusa and Yoko. Personally, I wouldn't have let that slide, but that's just me. Once all that information was out of the way, they began the ranking matches. Ryo and Matsuda were on a roll, winning all their matchups. They were so confident that they would be chosen that they began to compete for who would be the #1 pick. Yusa saw this and was unsettled for some reason. He probably didn't like the fact that they were getting smug looks about winning, so he asked Coach Ibarra if he could play with each of them a little, to which Coach Ibarra agreed. As soon as Yusa walked up to them to ask to play, they already knew how this would turn out. He wiped the floor with them and they were all back to feeling inadequate and like they had no skill whatsoever. What a douchebag. I hope he falls on his nose or something. Meanwhile, in the area of doubles, things weren't going so well for Ryo and Sakaki. They couldn't properly get in sync with each other. They kept running into each other's way, hitting each other, and missing balls that could have been rallied if not for their lack of teamwork. They were facing the twins, and both Taichi and Yoji felt bad about beating them so easily. They could see just how much work Ryo and Sakaki needed to put to become better teammates. After Ryo and Sakaki lost to the twins, they asked them for tips on how to play as a team, but the twins couldn't really give much insight. Akira made a suggestion. He asked Ryo to consider doing more things with Sakaki so as to understand him more. But Ryo was not very welcoming of the idea, considering how every time he stayed in the same room as Sakaki, he would snore too loudly and cause him to lose sleep the entire night. The next day, when Ryo and Sakaki were playing doubles again, and they seemed to be doing fairly well against the twins, but they still couldn't get in sync. Ryo was moving all over the place trying to catch the shuttle, and Sakaki was left trying to just pick up wherever he could. Even when Sakaki suggested that they divide the court and both take individual halves, it didn't go well either. In the end, they lost to the twins again. They both went to Coach Ibarra and the alumni coach for some advice. The alumni coach said that they should try playing together rather than as if they were individuals. He told them to try different techniques and learn to play from watching the twins. Later, while they were cleaning up the gym, Ryo went to ask the twins again for some tips. This time, Taichi told him that he just picks up anytime he thinks Yoji won't get the shuttle and vice versa. But Ryo still couldn't get anything from that. They went back to the dorms and Sakaki serenaded Ryo and Matsuda with his loud snores all night. In the morning, Ryo saw that Sakaki had calmed down and helped him cover up again. Matsuda felt bad for Sakaki. He had to help out at his parents' restaurant, help out his siblings and still practice like crazy for both singles and doubles. Matsuda then asked Ryo why he even wanted to play with Sakaki. Ryo said it was simply because Sakaki told him he liked how he played and it made him happy. But more than that, he had a promise to keep with Shizuo and Hiroto, his friends from middle school. He had promised to face them in one of the tournaments whenever they could, but he could only do that as a doubles player. Sakaki was awake at this point and he overheard everything that Ryo said. Later that day, Ryo and Sakaki seemed to be playing much better now. Not completely in sync, but they were still doing all right. Sakaki was trying to leave the rallying to Ryo and he'll handle the smashing, but it was easier said than done. Ryo, on the other hand, was trying to set up a smash for Sakaki, and he was having trouble doing so too. In the middle of one rally, however, Ryo managed to set up a perfect opportunity for Sakaki to smash, but Sakaki froze up and it cost them the match. Sakaki yelled out in rage and stormed out to cool his head. He ran into some of their classmates and he asked one of them for advice, which was a big mistake because all that guy knew how to do was run when it was inconvenient and stay when things were good, which is the same thing he told Sakaki to do. He said that if he wasn't compatible with Ryo in doubles, he should just find another partner. This is coming from a guy who got dumped and immediately moved on to another girl, so he won't be lonely in summer. But the damage was already done. After hearing the advice the classmate gave, Sakaki went back to the gym and told Ryo and the coach that he was stepping down from playing doubles. He told them that he was the one who wanted to play with Ryo, and even as he has been trying to get better, he has been nothing but a weak link to Ryo, and he didn't want to keep doing that. Ryo tried to console him and say that he was going to play with only Sakaki no matter what, but Sakaki was offended that Ryo was giving him pity and lying to his face. Sakaki soon realized he was causing a commotion and decided to play it off like it was nothing. The second years wanted to know why he was acting up, but he kept faking a smile the whole time and didn't say anything else. After that fiasco, Coach Ibarra called everyone together and announced the end of the training camp. Everyone then went to get freshened up. While they were doing so, Akira asked if everyone could come to his house for a barbecue. They all were super excited and agreed. Matsuda wanted to play the lone wolf as usual, but Sakaki wouldn't let him and eventually got him to agree to go. At Akira's house, everyone was brimming with laughter and joy. The meat was delicious, the vibes were immaculate, and surprisingly, Sakaki was being the life of the party. He was making jokes and lifting the spirits of everyone at the party, which was weird considering how he acted out at the gym earlier. The parents were so happy to have Akira's friends over and everyone seemed happy to be there. However, in the middle of all that partying, Ryo still wondered why Sakaki acted the way he did earlier in the gym. Later during the barbecue, Matsuda got a text from the girl who gave him the ribbon. She wanted him to go with her to the fireworks festival. Sakaki and the twins were sad because they hadn't been invited by girls before, so Matsuda suggested they all go together. And no, this wasn't Matsuda being a homie for the guys, he just did not want to go alone. How sad. When they got there, everyone was having a pretty good time. They got snacks, they played games, they even told stories about their past selves and how they got to love badminton and play it to this level. It was looking like the night would end on a wonderful note. But Akira called Matsuda's attention to something. He told Matsuda to at least try and be more friendly towards the girl who invited him out. But Matsuda had some sort of plan. He suddenly went to whisper something to the girl and she quickly followed him. The rest of the gang followed them as well, and before Ryo and Sakaki knew what was going on, they saw that their friends weren't around them anymore. The both of them were confused and tried searching for a while, but they just concluded that they would bump into the others eventually. Ryo took this chance to confront Sakaki about earlier in the gym, but Sakaki avoided answering. He kept saying Ryo should drop the topic, but Ryo was persistent. So Sakaki did the only thing he could think of and ran off into the crowd. The rest of the gang found a quiet spot thanks to one of the girls and went there to watch the fireworks. Akira was worried Ryo and Sakaki wouldn't be able to find them, so he sent the location of the spot to them both so that they could find them. As soon as he sent the message, he saw Ryo emerge from a corner. Talk about crazy timing. Matsuda asked why he wasn't with Sakaki, and Ryo explained how he ran away. They tried calling him and heard his phone ringing from above, and like rats to a hole, they all rushed to the rooftop to meet him. The girls wanted to come along, but Matsuda told them to stay put. When they got to the rooftop, Ryo finally got to have a conversation with Sakaki. Sakaki opened up to the gang about how he felt like a burden to Ryo and didn't want to impede his progress. He knew Ryo was getting better at a fast rate and wanted to do the same, but he couldn't. And ever since he heard that Ryo was trying to get to the newbie tournament so that he could play with his friends from middle school, he didn't want to be the reason that Ryo couldn't make it there. Ryo told him that all of that didn't matter, and what was important was that they kept trying and going at it till they got better. At this point, the twins stepped in and said that while Sakaki's lack of skill might be a big problem for their teamwork, he wasn't the only problem for their team. The twins then told Ryo that he was also a problem for the team. He didn't trust Sakaki most of the time to return shots and cover up some places, and because of that, it stunted their growth. Ryo realized where he got this mistake from. He saw Yusa protecting Yoko in their match at the Nationals and thought that was how teammates were supposed to play. So, he got the wrong idea and began doing that to Sakaki. Ryo immediately apologized for everything, and so, after a lot of heartfelt words and even more tears, Sakaki agreed to keep playing doubles with Ryo. Once that was settled, as if it were a movie scene, the fireworks started on cue, and they were absolutely beautiful. Meanwhile, the girls were still waiting downstairs, with Sakaki giving some sound advice, and Akira pushing him. Matsuda went forward and complimented the girl on her outfit. I find it crazy that he didn't do this sooner, but okay. The next day, Ryo and Sakaki went hard at their training. They incorporated all the advice that they had heard from different people and used it to improve their teamwork. By the end of October, when the rankings were over, they were selected for the lineup for the newbie tournament. A few days later, we see the first years at the prefectural newbie tournament. The twins bagged the crown in doubles, and for singles, Ryo and Matsuda made it to the finals and were set to face each other with both sides ready to leave it all on the court for the win. Before the match started, Coach Ibarra had a word of advice for both players. He asked them to both consider what the other person doesn't have that they do and capitalize on that. Ryo reflected on Matsuda's playstyle and remembered his strength was in his precision and technique, so he began to formulate a game plan around that. Coach Ibarra also decided to go against his personal rules and coach them both for the match. Well, he only directly coached Matsuda. Ryo got Akira as a coach instead. So, with that in mind, the first game was on. Matsuda got in the lead very quickly, but Ryo was still tenacious about covering up. He kept trying to make the game stretch out and become a long rally, but Matsuda wasn't giving him a chance. It wasn't long before Matsuda sealed the deal and took the first round. During the break, Akira told Ryo that the match could go his way if he dragged it out a bit longer. So, Ryo decided that was what he'd do. Matsuda, of course, knew this and was going to end it all as soon as possible. However, Coach Ibarra told Matsuda not to rush his victory. He knew that Ryo was getting desperate as well and would try something too. The next round started and Matsuda was shocked at the new playstyle Ryo had adapted to. It was his own. Ryo decided to copy Matsuda's moves. At first, it was just to annoy Matsuda so he could get thrown off his game and give him a chance, but it worked way better than he thought, and he was able to catch up to Matsuda in points. Matsuda was starting to get worn out, but worse, he was getting baffled by how Ryo was able to copy his techniques. The serves, the rallies, it was like Ryo had become an entirely different person. Ryo caught up to Matsuda in scores, and after a few more smart plays, he won the second round in an incredible comeback. Before the final round began, Matsuda noticed Ryo was smiling, and he got royally pissed off. Akira tried giving Ryo some halftime advice, but Ryo was completely locked in. He was muttering to himself to keep focused on the match. As the third round started, Ryo was managing to keep playing in amazing form. There even came a point where Matsuda looked like he was going to get a smash in, but Ryo somehow anticipated that he was going to do something else and ran to the right spot, so he could send the shuttle back to Matsuda's side and get a point. Matsuda was unable to speak. He didn't understand what had just happened, and neither did the rest of the crowd. They all questioned their realities. During one of the rallies, Ryo was playing like he was in a lucid dream. His body was light, he was having fun, and all he could focus on was chasing the shuttle. Everyone in the crowd had their butts clenched in anticipation of what was going to happen next. With every smash that Matsuda gave, Ryo returned it back with ease and elegance. It began to look to everyone as if Ryo's body was moving on its own. Ryo was in a world of his own. He had achieved the ultra instinct state for badminton. He kept flowing until he heard the final whistle. When he did, he could not believe his eyes. The match was over and he won. He actually beat Matsuda 21-17. The crowd went wild, but Matsuda kept calm and accepted his defeat like a champ. Now that's some character development. Ryo went over to talk to Coach Ibarra, but he was lost for words. And so, Ryo went on to take the crown of the newbie singles tournament. He was getting closer to his goal of competing at nationals. Later that night, Ryo was scarfing down his dinner. He had a big appetite after his big win earlier. He also said he needed the energy for his match against Shizuo tomorrow. Just then, he got a call from Shizuo. Speak of the devil. Shizuo wanted to remind him to give his all when they play tomorrow, and of course Ryo was going to. That is, until he saw that Shizuo was injured. Coach Abara told Ryo that he should target him since he was the weak link. But Ryo didn't think he could do that to Shizuo. This is his best friend we are talking about. The person who inspired him to play badminton in the first place. How could he possibly bring himself to absolutely destroy him in a match just because he's injured? This is gonna be a tough one to watch. What do you think will happen next?